Welcome to Truckers Voices Podcast. Your host, Tim Taylor, and co-host, Steve Brand. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
This is Danny Smith. Just calling to tell you how much I appreciate listening to your show, Truckers Voices. It's very informative. I really like hearing the drivers' stories, how they got into the trucking industry and maybe what kind of trucks they started out with. And it's just been a lot of fun, and I would encourage any drivers out there to tune in and listen, call in, be a part of it. It's a great show. Thanks.
Hi, this is Scott Post, and I love Truckers' Voices because there's always something entertaining and educational for our industry. And it's also hosted by two of my good friends, Tim Taylor and Steve Brand. Tune in tonight. And in the meantime, be safe out there.
Hey everybody, how you doing tonight? My name's Charlie Demchuk, and I'm here to welcome you to tonight's big show. Y'all sit back, relax, enjoy the show. Tim and Steve got a good one in store for you. So have a good night. We'll see ya.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. I hope everybody's doing good tonight. I hope that your day was the best day you've had yet. I hope you had a good day of trucking, and I know that every one of you out there kept America moving forward. Whatever you did, whatever you hauled, whatever it was, hey, remember, it was important to somebody because they hired you to haul it there, to get it there, and it was important to them, so it's important to you. Thank you every day for what you do out there. We got a good show lined up for you tonight. We got a gentleman by the name of Mr. Hershel Evans. A lot of you on here know him. Some of you might not know him, but after tonight, you're going to get to know Mr. Hershel Evans a little bit better. But before that, I'm going to bring my co-host in here, Mr. Steve Brand, in here.
Well, good evening, Tim. How's everybody doing?
Steve, I'm doing good tonight, man. You have a good day of trucking today?
Yes, I did. I'm coming to you live from the motel room at the Hampton Inn in Ringo, Georgia.
Georgia.
I am on my way southbound.
Somehow I know where Ringo, Georgia is, and if you're at the Hampton Inn, you're on Battlefield Parkway right there, not too far from Chickamauga, however you say that name over there.
Yeah, exactly. But went next door, got me some supper. Did you get my videos?
I did. Looks like you was having a good time over there, man.
Man, they had a live band. Nothing like a little music with your supper. Good supper. Man, oh man, oh man.
Well, I will tell you, Steve, I can tell you not in the home studio there because I know you got you at a condenser mic at home on your computer. You sound a little different tonight, but we can hear you good. See, you got the football game going in the background, but it looks like the Hokies are playing.
Hokies in West Virginia.
I got you. So anyway, if you're viewing us tonight, we appreciate you viewing us tonight. But you got anything you want to say to the listening audience out there tonight?
Just got a message said I'm a little faint. Need to move the mic a little closer. Maybe that'll work out a little better. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Yeah,
I haven't quite got this traveling studio down yet.
You're a little faint, probably because of the blue parrot there, you know. So, but
might be.
It's okay. We're gonna work through it, and we're gonna have a good show tonight. Hershel's got a lot of information to bring to us. We're gonna find out a little bit about Hershel's life, how he got into trucking, where he was, where he's at now. And then we want to talk a little bit about his passion there, the Pediatric Brain Tumor Foundation. It never stops with him. He's always doing something for the Pediatric Brain Tumor Foundation. And he just come off of a something that he did this past weekend. I'm not going to tell y'all what it is until we get into it. But without further ado, everybody, let's bring Mr. Hershel Evans in here. All right, Hershel, as you can tell, since the last time you was on the show, we have come a long ways as far as technology goes.
I have, because I upgraded phones. I had a phone, a 4-year-old phone. I finally moved up and got one a little newer, and now they've already come out with a new one again. So,
oh my goodness, yeah. You know, you showed me something on iPhone a while back, and man, I tell you what, it made me go get a new one. So anyway, I'm not going to tell you what it is because that's our little secret at Hershel.
exactly.
Exactly. Well, I'm glad you took out time from your day to come talk to us tonight about your life and how you got into the trucking industry. And most importantly, you know, the Pediatric Brain Tumor Foundation, because, you know, it just seems like it rolls around. And we keep doing what we're doing because we have a passion for it. And I know you have a passion for it also.
I do. It's been a part of my life for about 35 years now.
Yeah.
Just about the same length of time I've been a professional driver. I've been involved with the Pediatric Brain Tumor Foundation.
Okay.
So they really go hand in hand.
Yeah, they do, and you compliment. Actually, I'm not trying to put any feathers in, you know, my quiver here, but you really compliment what you do very well, and I appreciate it. And I'm glad to be hitched to your wagon there.
I tell people my only talent is not being bashful, and I am blessed with a multitude of fantastic friends that are always willing to answer the call when I, you know, ask them to get involved or be part of it, and getting the trucking industry involved in raising funds for the PBTF was absolutely one of the best things we ever did, because it made the fundraising efforts go just off the chart.
Right. Well, Hershel, before we actually dig deep into that, as we always do with every one of our guests, we want to find out more about you and your story on how you got into trucking. But first of all, you know, just tell us who you are, where you reside at, and anything else you want to add to that.
Well, right now we live out in a little town called Bremen, Georgia, which is about an hour west of Atlanta. We're about 10 miles inside the Alabama line in Georgia, on the west side of Atlanta. So that's where we've been for quite a while. But my wife and I were both born and raised in downtown Atlanta. Both went to City of Atlanta public schools, and just, you know, right there in the heart of downtown. And you know, when we decided to move out here, just a real happenstance that my wife and her dad decided to buy property out here in this county, in Haralson County, and that's where my family's from. So when her and I bumped into one another back in 1988, after a couple of years after high school, started dating, that's I found out that's where they had moved to, and that just, you know, it was like it was meant to be, because, you know, that's where my family's from. That's where a lot of my family had moved back to when they decided to, you know, retire and move out of Atlanta. They all moved west and moved back out to the west side of town. So it's just all fit together, like, you know, almost like God had a plan for it.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, when we're going through something, we can't understand why we're doing something for whatever reason or other. But when we turn around and look back on where he brought us from to where we're at now, he's like, oh yeah, that makes sense, you know? And yeah, God does have a plan for us, and we just don't understand it sometimes when we're walking in that plan, you know?
I agree completely.
We can look back on our life and we can see where he's brought us through situations. Just going back a little bit on what you just said when you met your wife, Holly, you told me a story what was you driving whenever you actually first laid eyes on Holly?
When I was driving,
Yeah.
you mean when we ran into one another after school?
Yeah.
I was riding my motorcycle.
Yeah. That's what I'm
Yep.
getting at.
Yep. I was. It was on Cinco de Mayo, the the 5th of May, and one of the big rock radio stations in Atlanta, 96 Rock. You guys probably never heard of them, but they were, when I was in high school, one of the biggest rock and roll stations in the southeast, probably in the eastern United States. But they were having a Cinco de Mayo party, and it was going on at a Mexican restaurant called U.S. Bar and Grill, and I was heading to Smyrna on my motorcycle to go hang out with a bunch of the roughnecks I hung out with back in the 80s, and I always had a radio playing on my motorcycle, and I heard that they were doing a live remote. So I decided just to ride by and ride through the parking lot and see what was going on. And of course I wasn't legal drinking age yet, so didn't do me any good to go in the bar. So I rode through the parking lot and rode down through the Winn-Dixie shopping center, which is right next door where I used to work in the Winn-Dixie store as a butcher, right out of my first job, right out of high school. And Holly just happened to be walking out of the door of the grocery store, and she and I stood there and started talking and kind of reminiscing, and hey, how you been? How what you been up to, and that kind of thing. And before you know it, we'd made a date for 2 nights later on May 7th, and went on our first date. And ain't never been on a date with another woman since.
Hey, I tell you what, when
she sat beside me laughing like
crazy. Well, when Holly got you, buddy, she got it all.
Yeah, she won a lot. I told her she won the lottery. She didn't believe me.
Oh, Holly, I'm so sorry, Holly. If you hear me, I'm so sorry. Well, that's a good story. I remember you telling me that one time how y'all met, and I could tell you a story sometime. I'll save it for later. How my wife and I met, and it's similar because you know what? Back in the '80s, we didn't have nothing else to do except ride around. I mean,
that was it.
I'm from a little small town down here in South Georgia. I grew up in Adel, Georgia, and man, I tell you, I can't tell you how many times I circled the Dairy Queen around Adel, just riding, and looking at people, So,
we had one in up in Smyrna. We called it the Miracle Mile.
The Miracle Mile.
It was a miracle theater. It was our version of the Dollar Theater back then. They had 2 theaters inside the building, a little small theater, and on the other end of the parking lot was a Dairy Queen. So we'd ride from the Dairy Queen, we'd loop around it, go over to the Miracle Theater, and back to the Dairy Queen, and we called it the Miracle Mile. And that was actually where I was heading that night, was to go up and we just went up there and rode around the parking lot.
Yeah.
There wasn't no games to play on cell phones, and there was arcades and stuff, but
right.
The kids that played in the arcades were they weren't the same ones that were old enough to drive cars normally. So yeah, that's all we did. We drove. We couldn't wait to get our driver's license. We were the day I turned 15, I got my learner's permit. The day I turned 16, I got my driver's license. And it just, to us back then, it was a big deal.
It was a big deal. Yeah. So you've been driving ever since. So you probably got hands like I do. See how my hands look?
Oh yeah.
So let me back out of here just for a second, and I'm going to let Steve get in there. Steve, go ahead if you got any questions. I don't want to hog it all up now because I do pay you well.
Yeah, you do. You do pay me well. I appreciate that. Give me good advice. I know that. Hershel, I just got to know, was you sporting a mullet back then? Did you have the mullet?
A little bit. Steve asked, did I have a mullet? We didn't call it a mullet back then.
Right.
We just called it beautiful, long, flowing hair. But I had when the first time I went and met Holly's dad, I probably had, an 8-9 inch ponytail hanging out of the back of my motorcycle helmet.
Oh,
and,
man.
I always had to tie it up with hair braids because if I didn't, it would get tangled up in the wind, and it'd take me 3 hours to comb it out. So yeah, there are some pictures floating around that I will never show to anybody that do have me with quite a head of hair.
That is awesome. I love that. I love that. We had the roundabout or circle, whatever you want to call it, over at Flat River, Missouri, and same thing. I mean, you just bumper to bumper, and there's no way that would happen today at $4 or $5 a gallon.
No.
I mean, you could. That's back when you could put $2 in the gas tank and ride forever. It seemed like, but no, that's awesome. That's awesome. I love hearing those stories.
I would love to see a picture of that side by side of one of our good friends, with the initials WC.
Yeah, he probably got me beat.
He's probably got you beat on that.
I do remember that.
For the right donation, that picture can be made public.
For the right donation, huh? Hey, you know what? You know me. I'm thinking. Anything we can get some money for the Pediatric Brain Tumor Foundation. I mean, come on. Let's see some pictures of Hershel there, right?
Yep.
Exactly.
Well, hey, so moving right along with the interview here, Hershel. So tell us what year you started trucking and actually how you got into trucking. And I want to know a little bit. I kind of know your backstory a little bit, but I want to know a little bit, what you was doing right before that.
When I come out of high school, I worked as I did a stint with a General Truck Leasing as a fuel and wash man. And that is, pretty self-explanatory. We put fuel in them, we drove around the truck, we washed them, drove around the building, washed them, parked them, and that's where I learned how to, I won't say drive a truck, but operate a truck. My dad was a heavy truck mechanic, and I always thought I wanted to be a mechanic also. So I enjoyed tearing stuff apart when I was a kid, and he'd help me put it back together. And I'd disassemble something else, and he'd help me put it back together. And by the time I was probably 14, I was putting clutches in 1-ton flatbed trucks. I mean, it was I just from an early age I enjoyed working on trucks and cars and just about anything I could take apart with tools. So just it seemed natural that I'd be a mechanic. So when I went to Ryder as a mechanic working in the shop, I mainly did tires, brakes, alignments, and external engine components. On the outside of the engine, starters, alternators, all that kind of stuff. AC work. I did some air conditioning type work and that kind of thing. But for some reason, when I got in the shop, back when I was back up to when I was at General Truck Leasing, it was real simple to get a commercial driver's license. It was nothing like what it is today. Mm-hmm. And it consisted of getting somebody in the shop that had what back then in Georgia we called a Class 5. Get somebody to sign an affidavit saying that I knew how to operate a truck. Take that down to the we didn't really call it the DMV back then. It was just taken to the State Patrol office. You took it to the State Patrol office. You handed them the affidavit. I don't even remember if we had to take a written test, but you basically handed them the affidavit. They hand you a Class 5 license. So I had a class what back then was called a 2-5, which 2 was a motorcycle and 5 covered everything else. So when I was in the shop working as a mechanic, I was one of the few entry-level mechanics that had a license to drive a truck. So I got picked to deliver trucks to customers, go pick up trucks from customers. I'd go pick them up, bring them in the shop, work on them, take them back, deliver them back to them. This is tractors and trailers. So that's how I got, kind of bitten with the bug for driving. And then we had another division of Ryder, which called, I think back then it was called Ryder Dedicated Logistics. They bought maybe 50 or 75 new trailers. And I had to deliver all the trailers to their location, do an in-service on them, check them out, make sure everything was good on them, made sure they were good to go. and got to talking to the guy, and he offered me a job driving on my 2 off days from the shop. You know, I think
Right.
I was off back then. It was like Tuesday and Wednesday, and the
Yeah.
shop's open 24/7. So being one of the low guys, I ended up with 2 weekdays off. So uh, on the Tuesday and Wednesday when I was off, he hired me to drive. So I did that for a few months, and realized, heck, it actually pays better money to ride around in the cab of them
Yeah.
and not get covered in grease and oil and dirt. And so when he offered me a full time job, I took him up on it and started driving full time for Ryder. And since I worked in the shop and nobody really, I was already a Ryder employee, so they didn't really give me a road test. It was just, okay, well, now you're a driver, and they put me in a truck and off I went.
Right.
And so I actually started driving when I was 20 years old. It's before I turned 21. And uh, I was going to Alabama and Tennessee, and mostly staying in Metro Atlanta, but sometimes I would get out of the state. And a few weeks before my 21st birthday, they realized I wasn't 21 years old, and I'd already been driving for 6 months probably, and they it was one of them things where things were a lot different back then, and they kind of just said, okay, well, just don't say anything to anybody, and I just kept driving. So I've been driving since I was about 6 months prior to my 21st birthday.
Wow. Wow.
And then left
So
there, moved over, went to left there, came to Holland back in '94. So
yeah.
and now we're yellow. So been here the whole time since then.
So backing up a little bit, tell us before your trucking industry there, working on the side of the road in Atlanta, Georgia, changing tires. What kind of experience is that? Because I see people out there on all the time changing tires on the side of the road, and I know for me personally, I wouldn't want to be doing that. I mean, way back then. Go ahead.
I would not want to be doing it today. I did a lot of it back then. I had a lot of times I changed tire on the side of the highway. Usually, if I was changing tire on the side of the highway, it was a steer tire. If it was one of the trailer tires or drive tire, that driver would they'd find a way to get to a Waffle House or a Cracker Barrel, or
Right.
they'd find somewhere to stop me till I got there with a service truck. But
Right.
if I was having to change one on the side of the road, it was normally a front tire because they couldn't go anywhere. So if they could drive it, they would bring it to the shop. So the vast majority of them that we changed, we did them in the shop. But once in a while, we'd have to go out and we'd go find them. They'd make it to a truck stop somewhere and need a tire put on, and they'd call us up and we'd load up what we need in the service truck and go change the tire.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Steve, I'm going to back out and let you go.
You're fine. I'm enjoying this.
Very interesting.
Yeah, it is. It's very interesting, and I totally understand what he's saying about changing the tire on the side of the road. I get nervous if I got to pull over if I hear something go wrong. I mean, if you're too far in between exits and you need to hit that shoulder, I get scared to just pull over on the daggone shoulder today. Period.
Well, I was coming around 285 the other day, and there was a fella trying to change his own tire out there, and man, he was right there on the fog line, and I'm like, you know what? That's what the hero units are for. He should have been waiting on that hero unit to go in there and give him some cover,
Exactly.
So, anyway, so Hershel, getting back into your trucking career, what are some of the things that over your period of time being in the trucking industry that you've seen change?
Well, yes, obviously, cell phones. People using cell phones. I know the cell phone has become something that none of us can live without. There's used to be when I first started driving, I had a bag full of maps. Map books. Every year when the new City of Atlanta map come out, I'd have to go to Sam's and buy one. Because I'd want that big map with showing all the streets and all that. And now all that's right there at the tip of your fingers on the phone.
Right.
I remember when ABS first came to trucks. That was probably one of the greatest inventions there ever was. For when anti-lock braking systems got put on trucks.
Can I slow you down right there real
Sure.
quick? So for our listening audience that's not in the trucking industry, and I know we do have some people out there that does not really understand how the ABS system actually works. Can you kind of, simply explain that to us?
Sure. It has sensors on your wheel, and the sensor actually watches the tire turn. And there is a I guess a photo optic light that looks at there's a gear cog. If you look on a tire that has ABS, it looks like a small set of teeth. And what that optical sensor is doing, it's looking at that cog of teeth, and it's going by, and as it's spinning, it knows how fast the wheel's turning, and it knows that if the wheel slows down, if the rate of descent of the wheel is too great, it knows it's just about to lock up. It's called an impending lockup. So when it gets to that point of impending lockup, it actually will let go of the pressure a little bit, push the pressure back into the valves to let the pressure off the brake pads, to let the tire keep turning, because the maximum braking for that wheel occurs at that point just prior to lockup. Once it locks up, the car can actually speed up, because once a tire locks, the car will actually the rate of deceleration will stop going down. It'll actually move up. So
Right.
you want that tire to be gripping the road at the maximum amount of grip without locking the tire up.
Right, which will
So
can
right,
help prevent
right.
skidding. Not necessarily 100%, but it can help.
No, yeah, but it'll help you if you're in a situation where you've already got. We used to when I was training for a motorcycle ride, we call it the traction pie.
Hmm.
There's only so much traction that tire's got, and if you eat up all that traction that tire doing braking, you've got none of the traction left to do cornering with. So if you happen to already be in a turn when that tire locks up, it'll take you out of the turn, because it'll let you slide sideways, because you've ate up all your traction pie with your braking. You've got none left for directional stability, so you can't stay in a straight line. That's how you slide sideways.
Right.
So that was, we learned that doing emergency braking on motorcycles. Of
So
course, that was all done back before ABS was a thing.
yeah. So I'm asking a question I know the answer to already, but so for a truck driver, does that help prevent jackknifing?
It can.
But it's not absolutely, right?
Not absolutely, but most jackknifing. We're going to go back to the facts for drivers, but most jackknifing occurs most quickly when the tractor tires lock up, because
Right.
that's where you've got the shortest axis to turn on. So if the
Right.
tractor tires lock up, that's where you get your quickest jackknife. It can be the trailer jackknife, where the trailer locks and slides all the way around sideways. But if the tractor tires don't lock up, then that can absolutely prevent jackknifing.
Okay.
So yeah, I remember, when driving trucks in the rain, especially bobtailing, that didn't have ABS, it was a hair-raising experience.
Yeah.
I mean, you didn't get close to anybody, because you didn't know, if you were going to be able to stop or not. So you drove with a whole different mindset in a light rain and a bobtail.
Right. Well, let me tell you what happened to me over in Ozark, Alabama, years ago. I was running up through there. I was probably running one of the last runs we had going over to Montgomery, Alabama to meet, and I was headed uphill, and it was raining, and I had an empty on my back trailer, and light turned red, and I had to get on it. And what I did not realize was when I got on the brakes, my back trailer started coming around and scared me to death. So I don't know what happened there, but it can happen,
Yep, absolutely.
It can happen. So anyway,
that was one of the great inventions, was ABS coming to trucks.
yeah. What kind of other safety devices have you seen come along throughout, your career that's been real beneficial?
Well, airbags are another one. Airbags. That's a device you never want to use, but if they're there and used in coordination with a seatbelt, got a huge potential for saving a life or preventing a serious injury. Yeah, all these things weren't they weren't on trucks 35 years ago.
Right.
I mean, heck, they weren't even on cars 35 years ago. So you know, uh,
So,
those are
Hershel, you've been in the trucking industry, back like when I started out, and I mean, I was running city. I ran city for about 5.5, almost 6 years, and no air condition, no air ride or anything. And I mean, we've come a long ways. I mean, the
oh yeah,
trucking industry is really improved their technology over the years for the comfort and the safety of the driver and the motoring public around them.
absolutely. Yeah, the first truck I drove for Ryder it had an air seat in it. Uh, it had air operated windshield wipers.
Oh Lord.
But there were no air ride there were no air ride suspensions, and that truck didn't even have an air ride cab. So now we've got trucks with the cabs are air ride, uh, the air suspension ride it may have been available back then, but not on the trucks that not on the economy trucks
Mhm.
that we drove didn't have those fancy features.
Right. Right.
So some of the nicer, more expensive trucks they may have had it, but not took it a while to make it into the freight trucks.
Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, I was just going to comment on the air wipers. They usually come from the top and they'd come down,
Yep.
and then they'd hang right in the middle. And it's like, oh no, the hose or something got pinched or whatever. And I tell you, and correct me if I'm wrong, Hershel, a lot of this stuff that they're coming out with semis is going to the cars, correct?
Absolutely.
Because I know, like my wife's Traverse, it has the crash mitigation, it has the adaptive cruise control, and they have access to turning that off. But she loves it. She absolutely loves it. I've got it on my semi I drive. I got it on the one I'm driving today,
Yep.
and I really enjoy it. Just don't overdrive it. That's the whole key.
I think the my wife's got a new Mustang. It's got the adaptive cruise control on it, and that's the only vehicle we personally own that has it. All of our new tractors are coming with it, but I do believe that is one of the that's one of the systems on the new trucks that can beat the driver as far as knowing when the vehicle in front of you slows down just a half a mile an hour. That radar or laser, whichever one it's using to pick up that vehicle and judge its speed, that is that's something the driver can't beat.
Mhm.
Right.
I'm not a huge fan of the lane departure systems. I think those things can be a little bit of an annoyance, or they get to me they get to draw my attention away. I pay attention to everything in front of me and what's way out in front of me, and the lane departure systems kind of they you start trying to drive your truck in such a way that you don't want to hear that buzzer go off on that lane departure system.
Right.
And to
Right.
me
Right.
that moves a little bit of your attention into another area. So I'm not saying I'm totally against it, but I'm not near as much a fan of it as I am the adaptive cruise control. And you guys know, all three of us are America's Road Team captains, and we drive the the top of the line flagship trucks from Volvo and Mack, and
Mhm.
all those have those systems on them. The adaptive cruise, that was my first experience with adaptive cruise, was the Road Team trucks, and that was that's one of the coolest technologies out there. I think it's really it's up there really close to analog brakes as far as being a useful system.
Would you say the collision mitigation system is 100%? If somebody was coming up on something and wasn't paying attention, will it shut a truck down completely?
I think some of the new systems have that capability.
Yeah.
I've never been given the opportunity to test one of them or see a
Don't-
test done with one of them,
I don't want to.
and I don't want to test one of them on my own, but
Yeah.
they do things, I think Bendix will take drivers out sometimes and show them how their system works and how good of a system it is. They'll have a mock car in front of them and they'll drive the truck at full throttle toward the car and they'll
Right.
watch watch it take over and actually brake the truck and stop it. And that's something that has progressed through the years. When they first come out, they would apply about 30% brake. And that was more or less just to get the driver's attention, say, hey, there's something up here you need to be paying attention to.
Right.
And now they've progressed and moved in. I think now they will do 100% braking.
Right. Right. Okay. So with that said, Hershel, let's move on let's segue into our next topic. The reason we brought you on here, we want to move into what you just got through doing this past weekend with the Pediatric Brain Tumor Foundation. Before we actually get into it, I actually downloaded a quick little video. I want to add this to the stream real quick, so y'all hang on just a second.
Help the Pediatric Brain Tumor Foundation fight the deadliest childhood cancer at a Ride for Kids. Your participation will help fund life-saving research and family support programs. Give children with brain tumors the future they deserve. Visit rideforkids.org.
All right. So I kind of downloaded that, just kind of segue into it. I do have some slides, Hershel, that I'm going to put back up here. And I'm going to let you speak to some of these pictures here. And you just take your liberty to tell us all about the Atlanta Ride for Kids, okay, and what it's all about.
So that little fellow there, that's John, and the guy on the right is his dad, John Sr., and the guy on the left is Michael. He's one of our new ride managers with the Pediatric Brain Tumor Foundation. Little John Jr. there is what we call a star, which means on Ride for Kids Day, we treat all these little kids like they're the star for the day. So they get to come to the ride. They'll get to ride a motorcycle, ride in a sidecar. That's what we do with them. The Ride for Kids started back in 1984. That slide there is myself and Tommy and Connie Smith, which Tommy and Connie Smith were they were our task force leaders in Atlanta and for several years. And Tommy and Connie were some of our biggest fundraisers for several years. And Tommy was one of my inspirations in wanting to do more and be more, make more of an impact in the Ride for Kids. Tommy, several years in a row, he raised, $35,000, at a time.
Right.
And I always wondered, how does one person raise that much money? And I figured out it's because he's got a whole lot of friends. So that's how Tommy did it, and that's how we're doing it now as a team.
Right.
We're doing it because we got a bunch of friends. One guy can't do that. One guy can't have that kind of impact unless he's got the ability to write a check, which I don't.
Most of us don't.
Yeah. So you lean on your friends and make stuff happen.
Yeah, yeah. So the pictures I'm showing you here was from this past weekend, correct?
That is from the 2022 Atlanta Ride for Kids. We're coming out of our 2 years of hiatus due to the COVID craziness, and so we're trying to get our feet back under us and get everything back going again. The Atlanta Ride for Kids started back in 1984. There was a man that had a daughter with a brain tumor.
Hold on just a minute. I got a slide of them. Let me just scroll to it, okay?
All right. That is Mike and Diane Trainer. The two people on the bike there. Back up one.
Did I go past it?
Yep, you went past it. Right there. That's Mike and Diane Trainer. The fellow that had the child with the brain tumor was one of Mike's friends.
Yeah.
And he was an avid motorcyclist. And as his fellow motorcyclist, they decided to get together and raise money for his daughter and her treatment and everything she had going on. So they got a bunch of people together at Cycle Nuts and Bolts in Clarkston, Georgia, and they rode out to Athens, Georgia, just for a place to go eat lunch. And they raised, I think it was, $5,000 maybe.
Yeah.
Wasn't a whole lot of motorcycles involved. But they raised pretty good bit of money for that girl who now is a grown woman. She's still with us. She survived a brain tumor, and she's doing well. And every year after that, they just kept doing it again and again and again. And I got involved in it in about 1987, and
So about 35 years ago.
yep. And the had a weatherman in Atlanta named Johnny Beckman, and he was a friend of Mike Trainer's. They were motorcycle buddies.
And this is Mike Trainer on the screen.
That's Mike Trainer on the screen right there. That's him and Diane. They've both since passed.
Okay.
And but Mike Trainer was friends with Johnny Beckman. Johnny Beckman was a weatherman for one of the local TV stations in Atlanta, and he got on TV with his motorcycle and a couple of kids sitting on his bike, and he said, "Hey, come out to the Ride for Kids, and ride your bike and have a good time." And I'd never been on an organized ride before, so I thought it'd be kind of cool to go to a big organized motorcycle ride. So me and a couple of buddies I rode with, we rode up to back then it was Perimeter Mall.
Yeah.
And we went to Perimeter Mall, and we rode all the way to Helen, Georgia, which was probably over a 2-hour ride at the slow speeds we were going.
Wow, that is a ways.
Yeah, it was a ride. And so the next year when we came back, we said, "Oh, we're gonna show up early, so we're not in the back of the line, because the back of the line kind of gets the yo-yo effect." So we showed up kind of early the next year, thinking we'd be the first people there. We showed up about 2 hours before the registration opened. Well, lo and behold, there was 50 people already in the parking lot, and they threw us a T-shirt that said "volunteer" on it, and we got told we were now volunteers, and we were helping setting up tents and trash cans, and handing out coffee and donuts. We just did whatever they asked us to do. So man, we had a ball, and we came back the next year and did it again. And it's just been every year since. And I've kind of moved up through the volunteer ranks. And when they started calling the organizers, when they started calling it a task force, I was one of the task force members. And we've been, I can't even tell you how far back that goes, but that was, well over 20 years worth. We've been members of the Atlanta Ride for Kids Task Force.
How many bikes do you say that you average on the ride nowadays?
Nowadays, what the last time you counted bikes? I mean, 350. About 350, Holly counted the last time we did a full attendance ride. This year was kind of a different deal, but years ago, back in our heyday, back in the late 80s, early 90s, there were as many as 2,200 motorcycles would show up for the Atlanta Ride for Kids.
That's crazy.
We were the Cycle World magazine said that we were the largest one-day motorcycle event east of the Rocky Mountains. So,
wow.
And we would raise. I've got some old paperwork, from our old task force meetings, the books that we keep, where we raised over $300,000 in 1 year at one ride. So, Honda got involved with us in 1991, and they took it nationwide. There was a time where the Ride for Kids had rides going on, and there were 37 different Ride for Kids events going on all over the country. And each one of those Ride for Kids events had, task force members, task force leaders, volunteers. We probably had over 250 volunteers at the Atlanta ride at one time. So a huge team of people put this thing together. And that man you see on the motorcycle right there, Mike Trainer, he and I became pretty good friends. He and I rode the same kind of motorcycle. Both of us rode a mid-80s V65 Sabre. I've actually got tailpipes on my Sabre that I bought from Mike Trainer. And they're actually still on my bike today. But the one thing that Mike instilled in me a long time ago was at the Ride for Kids event, the one he did in Atlanta, he was a huge fan of getting sponsors to pay for everything we needed. And he loved getting up there on stage and telling people that everything we have here at the Ride for Kids event was paid for by sponsors, so that every dime that a motorcyclist brought in went straight to the work that the PBTF was doing.
Right.
And I think that is one of the most fantastic parts of what we do, what you guys help me do at the Safety Drive for a Cure, because we get sponsors to pay for everything we do. And that allows every dime that every driver donates goes directly to fighting that, like a guy said in that video, fighting the deadliest form of childhood cancer.
Right. Yep. I'll tell you, it takes a volunteer army to do some of these things, and there's a lot of people that are behind the scenes that you don't never realize how hard they're working to make these things a success. I mean, yeah, you see the front people out there like yourself and myself and Steve, but there's people like Holly in the background that's working just as hard as anybody else out there, and it wouldn't be a success without those kind of people like Carla Rose. You never see Carla Rose at the Safety Drive for Cure because she's behind the scenes doing a lot of stuff that we don't realize,
We keep her head over in the trailer doing chores.
So Steve, go ahead and you ask a few questions. I'm actually over here loading something else up real quick, like I forgot about, but go ahead.
Now, Hershel, you decided to bring that to the trucking family, and kind of give us a little insight real quick of how that come about, how you decided to bring it to the trucking family.
Well, I got involved with the truck driving championships back in 2006. Went to state for the first time in 2006. Our company at the time, Holland, had never competed before in Georgia. They had competed in Michigan, where they're based out of. So we got the first time out. We decided we'd go to we'd go to state. I was the only driver in Georgia they put out for state. The only guy that signed up. Nobody else knew anything about it. Ryder had done some intercompany events, some inter just with Ryder drivers, kind of like a company TDC kind of thing we had done. So I knew a little bit about what might happen, but didn't even know the state truck driving championship existed before 2006. Never heard of it.
Right.
And we got involved in that. Right after I got back from nationals, I ended up winning my first year and going to nationals in New Orleans. And about 2 months after I got back from New Orleans, I had a guy on I-20 that was heading home from a third shift job, fell asleep, and ran in the side of my trailer. So I knew right away from reading the rules, I knew I was knocked out going in 07. I said, I'm not going to be able to go compete in 07 because this guy, hit my truck. So Holly and I started looking around for a something else to do, some other kind of competitions. We just searched around on the internet, and we found this little thing they do up in Virginia called the Make-A-Wish Fund Drive that'd been going on for a while. So we drove up in 2007. We drove up and did the Make-A-Wish Fund Drive, and just to, we thought about it even back then. Her and I were talking about it, thinking, if we could get something like this going for the Pediatric Brain Tumor Foundation, to where it could raise money for that, we said this would be awesome. Because what those guys were doing up there at the Make-A-Wish was inspirational in that they were raising tens of thousands of dollars for kids, and it was all truck drivers. I mean, what truck driver don't like kids?
That's right.
Exactly.
I mean, they ride by, they want us to honk the horn. They like the big old truck. They, y'all know from being at the road team events when, kids want to get up in a truck. They all kids love trucks. So, it seemed like a natural kind of pairing to put them together. And then there's a whole lot of truck drivers enjoy riding a motorcycle.
Right.
We ride around something all day long that's 75 feet long and big and slow and cumbersome and all that. So there's a lot of us enjoy parking that truck and getting on our little two-wheelers and having something different to tool around on. So there's kind of a natural relationship between truckers, bikers, and kids.
Right.
And it just seemed like the perfect marriage to try to put all of those together, where the Safety Drive for a Cure raises money for the Pediatric Brain Tumor Foundation, and all of our money goes to the Atlanta Ride for Kids, which is the motorcyclist. So
Right.
working with the Atlanta Ride for Kids, uh, one of my responsibilities there was to match up what we called our little stars, the little fellas you see in the little yellow shirts.
Mm-hmm.
We'd match up the stars with the riders that they're going to be riding with for the day. So go back up one photo there. You'll see Tim Vogt and Daryl Ellerby right there. Me and Tim Vogt and Daryl Ellerby sitting there. Tim Vogt and Daryl Ellerby they're both professional drivers. And when I was in charge of what we call our VIP line, or VIP escorts, it's taking the kids and putting them on the bike with a rider that they're going to ride with on the ride. And I knew if I could get professional truck drivers who rode motorcycles to get involved with this, I would have no fear at all putting one of these kids on the back of a motorcycle with a professional driver.
Right.
Right.
So I can't tell you how many professional drivers that came to the Ride for Kids with their motorcycle and rode kids. Daryl, Tim Vogt, Scott Donaldson, Big Lane Hensley that drove for us in Atlanta. I mean, I could just name just dozens of them that over the years have came and been a VIP escort for us. And that was always to me, it gave me just a real sense of security to know that when I put a kid on the back of the bike with this guy's a professional driver. I got no fear at all that that kid's in any kind of danger. He's in the best hands he can be in. So that's just more of it being just a perfect marriage of different things being put together for one cause.
Right.
And it's just turned out bigger than I ever dreamed it would.
Right. Right. Well, we're actually streaming on the Safety Drive for a Cure page. So, anybody wants to go on there and check us out, I would encourage you to on Facebook to go to Safety Drive for a Cure, and you can see everything that we do every year, especially in March for the truck driving competition we have to raise money for the Pediatric Brain Tumor Foundation. I can say that the truck driving competition part of the Safety Drive for Cure is great, but what's even greater is when we're finished and we're totaling up the amount of money that we raised. That just hits me every year because I know that it's a bunch of drivers that come together for one great cause, and you leave there, you made friends, but you know that you made a difference in some family and some child's life just by the little bit of time that you put into it.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the wonderful sponsors we have, and the companies that are involved with us, and the people that loan us equipment and give us food and give us drinks and give us everything we need. Lets that driver know that whatever that driver does, whatever effort that driver puts forth to raise money, and some of them do amazing. Some of them, like you, I mean, you're one of our absolute, top fundraisers. I mean, you're off the chart as far as how much money you raise, and but every dime, Tim, that you put into that, all the effort you put into that, every dime you raise goes 100% to the foundation. We don't have to skim any off the top or use any of it, or
Right.
take a percentage of it or anything. Every bit of it goes to the foundation.
Right. Yeah. Right. And you can have confidence in that for sure, because I've seen it, and everything that we do, it's all volunteer, and it's really nothing as far as the money we raise for the Pediatric Brain Tumor Foundation goes to efforts to put this on. It's absolutely 100% donation goes to the PBFT.
Yep. Yeah, they impressed me several years ago when Mike and Diane, how they operated it and how they did things and how they, they wanted to do things to help the families and the kids. And there's a research, there's a huge thing that goes on with the Pediatric Brain Tumor Foundation. I think I'm probably not going to get the numbers exactly right, but somewhere in the 60 or $75 million range that they've raised over the years for.
Right.
They're the largest non-governmental sponsor of pediatric brain tumor research.
I'm just kind of scrolling. Go ahead.
All that stuff they do, that, like I say, I've been involved with them for 35 years. I know the stuff they do, and I know how passionate they are. I know the people involved with the foundation here in Atlanta. Heather Held is just one of the most amazing people you'll ever meet.
Right.
But all the folks I've met, I've been at the national convention they hold. I went there one time and met a bunch of people from all over the country, and they've just all got such a passion for doing this and making it, making it beneficial to the families they serve.
Right.
And
well,
it's the work they do and the work that Heather works directly with families.
Right.
And I couldn't do the job she does.
Right.
I couldn't do it. It would, because inevitably there are families that their children, it doesn't have the outcome they want. And she has seen that way too many times.
Yeah.
And I mean,
go ahead.
I'm much better being a grunt behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Raising money, because there ain't no way I can do what she does as often as she does it.
Right. Well, we're actually coming to the close of the show here. We got 2 minutes left. I want you to simply just tell us what somebody can do if they can't drive a truck, or anything like that. How can they get involved, Hershel? Or ride a motorcycle? Yeah.
With the safety drive.
Yeah, with the safety drive, with the Ride for Cure, what can they
volunteer. You can show up and volunteer. You can do the same thing we did when we first got involved. Show up that morning with an open heart and ready to pour out a little sweat and get involved. Be a volunteer. You can be a fundraiser without being a participant.
Right.
If you don't want to drive a truck, if you don't want to ride a motorcycle, that's fine. You don't have to. You can still be a fundraiser, get involved. You can have full confidence getting involved in something like this, where your money's going to a good cause, it's going to good people that are doing good work. Share it with your friends. I mean, the social media part of it is, that's how we've grown at the Safety Drive. Is practically all of our publicity that we do is through Facebook. So, but share the links with friends, share the emails.
Right.
Tell people what you're doing. Say, hey, I'm involved with this. I'm going to go, help some kids that suffer from brain tumors, and do what I can do to help them out and help their families out. And, all the money we raise is going to be used to help those families.
Right.
So.
Right. Well, can you believe it? We've been up here at it for an hour now, and we gotta close the show out. But Hershel, I do appreciate you come on and sharing your story with us on how you become a trucker, and more importantly, your passion behind you do what you do for the Pediatric Brain Tumor Foundation. And we definitely going to have you on again in the future. I know that around March, have you got a date set for the Safety Drive for Cure yet, or are you still working on that?
We're trying. We've got a couple more people to get approval from, and but we're really, really close.
Okay.
End of March, 1st of April, in that neighborhood, somewhere in the ballpark of March 25th is what we're looking for.
Yeah.
I won't say it's nailed down yet, but that's our target right now. So, like you said, a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. But we do have a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes, and it's just a matter of getting everybody on the same page and make sure everybody's been informed and everybody's given approvals and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's what we're trying to zero in on right now, and it should be within the next week. We should have have it, in stone.
Okay. All right. Well, Hershel, thank you again. I do appreciate you coming on. We got to close the show out now, but I'm gonna let Steve say his goodbyes, and then I'll say my goodbyes, and we're gonna close the show out. Okay.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate what y'all do.
Thank you, Hershel. Appreciate it. God bless you. Bye, Miss Holly. Have a good time, and don't see y'all in between. We're definitely looking forward to March.
I believe in God our Father.